This is TWiT.
A question from the chat room. Based on your experience at the companies you work with, what are the best opportunities for doing open source consulting today? And how does one get started doing something like that?
Wow. Well, I got started long before I had to ask that question. So I got started because I just wanted to be in the industry. I just thought that maybe someday I'd get a job at a bank or a government thingy, and it turned out that open source, well, we didn't call it open source, we call it shareware and stuff back then. What would somebody do today? I think the big thing, as evidenced by a lot of the shows that we've had here on FLOSS Week over the last couple of years, the big thing is the cloud. The big thing is scalable applications using non-traditional databases, using modern infrastructures like Perl would be the catalysts of the generation, things like that. I think that's, learning about data scaling, learning about cloud management, learning about what are these proprietary services doing, like how does Amazon Web Services actually work, or if you're going to use one of the open solutions, like how do things like man, my brain's going this morning. Not enough tea yet today, but the things that we scale on. The things that scale well in our open source for doing infrastructure. In fact, actually, we got one coming up. We've got CoreOS, which is Linux for massively server deployment. So that sort of thing. Learn about that stuff. And you can build those up in VMs like Docker that we're going to have in a couple of weeks. You can build up Docker VMs that talk to each other. So you can kind of play with this all on your own and give it to this all open source software. Learn about that stuff, and you'll be a lot more valuable to the future employers that are out there, because I know that a lot of my clients are all struggling with the same sort of things. How do we scale our app? How do we make it run in the cloud? How do we manage that? How do we also manage the local development of it before we deploy to the cloud? Things like Docker are useful to solve that sort of thing. So learn about that. I think that's going to be the best way to go with that. So, yeah.
So you and I kind of got into the open source area, well, and in fact, into the whole programming area, in the same way. I also didn't have a formal education until recently. Mm-hmm. But what would you tell somebody who's trying to get into this area now, if they want to, start off programming? What would be your 5 Randal tips of the day?
It's the same reason I don't teach the beginnings of programming. It's been so long since I've been there that I can't remember what I did to get over those humps. This is why learning Perl actually starts with, you already know what an array is, you know what a subroutine is, because I don't remember what it took for me to learn why you would use an array. And so I can't teach that either. I can't teach anything that I can't recollect having learned recently. Same way, I don't know what I would tell somebody to get started. I know that sitting on the hiring side a lot, because I work with a lot of clients that I'm sometimes involved in the interview processes with them to bring on other people. I think a lot of them are looking for a formal education of some kind, and I think that's unfortunate, because I know that a lot of people are sometimes just just naturally good at stuff like this, and I'd rather hire somebody that's naturally good rather than anything else. But also people who play with this stuff in their off hours. If your only exposure to that sort of stuff is classroom time, and you don't do this stuff nights and weekends, I don't know that I want to hire you. I don't know that I want you on my company, because I want people for whom this is interesting, for whom this is what they're thinking about when they're in the shower, when they're driving to work every day. Oh, I got an idea for an algorithm. I want to see people like that working next to me, because it's a lot more fun that way. And I think that's probably what employers are looking for as well. So if you're not naturally drawn to programming, like I was back 30 years ago, if you're not naturally drawn to programming, please don't be a programmer. There's plenty of us out here. We don't need more people who are doing this because it's a good living. It actually is a good living. I want people who would do this even if they weren't paid. And I'm that kind of person, because I program for myself on nights and weekends without getting paid. I'm getting paid in the reward of having done something fun.